Hey, good afternoon, all you beautiful people. All right, it's been about a week since I gave you an update. A lot has happened. I have a lot to cover. I apologize for the lack of updates. I have gotten wrapped up in other projects. Uh, and to be honest, not much has really happened in the crypto world worth reporting. A lot of geopolitical events and news have taken place. However, the Fed, of course, increased interest rates by 25 basis points. And then we have some, sanctions that have occurred, stronger and stronger against the Russian economy. And so today, I guess what I want to do is talk about the ramifications of Russian sanctions on the US and the global economies from a macroeconomic perspective, if you will, and also how that spills over into crypto. Um, because it should be something that we explore. I always have said that if you want to be a good trader, you've got to be somewhat of a conspiracy theorist. Now, I know that word has carried a bad connotation, looked on very negatively by the narrative today. Um, but all it really means, and all I intend by saying conspiracy theorist, is that you have the ability to question and hold in your mind um, another perspective. You don't have to accept that perspective, but you have the ability to hold that that opposing perspective. And why would you do that? The reason you would do that is it allows you to see other possibilities that exist. And if there are other possibilities, there could potentially be other opportunities as well, correct? We don't want to miss opportunities. So, to be a good trader, we have to explore all possibilities which might lead us to other opportunities. And that is what we are going to do today, folks. Let's jump over to our charts. Now, I was going to go into a big thing about, Putin and Russian invasion, clarifying, of course, that I am not a Putin sympathizer, but just talking about reasons, why this whole thing might have occurred. But I'm not going to do that. That takes too much time. I have 20 minutes here on TradingView, which is where all these videos start. I do them live. I do them on the fly. I forget things. I say things wrong. I don't go back and edit. I just go with it. All right. And so today there is a lot of information. I don't need to include all of that as well. We just know at this point what Putin did was very aggressive, and what the US did to counter that was also very aggressive. We don't have to go into the backstory or the history or any of that, which might lead us to conspiracy, real conspiracy. We won't do that. Right now, where we're at is the Russian economy has been sanctioned. Whether you agree with that or not, that's another story. Unfortunately, a sanction on the Russian economy is intended to hurt the people of that nation. All right. Now, the big question is, will the sanctions on Russia hurt the economy as much as the US and NATO might think it will? I want to get to that. And that's where we're going to start. I'm going to pull up a little graph here. We have the as I expand this, the top 20 exports by the Russian economy. Of course, we know that petroleum is at the top of that. Next, natural gas. Next, coal. Top 3 energy sources here in the U.S. to heat our homes, to make electricity, to run our cars. Then you have iron, to make a lot of things. Aluminum, all right? How are you going to drink your beer without aluminum cans? That's the least of our concern right now, to be honest. Number 7, wheat. Then you have precious metals, gold. Number 8, diamonds, all right? Precious stones. Fertilizers is a big one. I want to talk a little bit about that. Some economists have speculated that the cost of fertilizer is going to 3x just because of these sanctions. Most of our fertilizer for our crops in the U.S. comes from Russia. All right. And if fertilizer increases due to the sanctions in Russia, what's going to happen to the food that you buy at the grocery store? Duh. All right. Same thing. And then add into that the mix, this inflation that's going on in the U.S. economy is something that we haven't seen since the 80s, and I believe it's going to get worse than what we saw in the 80s. Right now, they're saying 8%. That's based off the CPI index, which is a lower way of tracking inflation. And by the way, even that, the factors and the variables used to calculate inflation based upon the CPI have changed since even the 80s. Some say if we use the same calculation methods, our inflation would be more like 14 or 15%. Just throwing that out there, all right? So the situation does not get any better. And that is all going to greatly impact our economy. I want to ask you a question. Do you honestly think Putin was not expecting sanctions by the U.S.? I mean, what kind of dummy would not? I mean, the U.S. has 170 bases all over the world. We consider ourselves the police of the world. We have thrown $15 billion at Ukraine over the last 10 years. Let me digress a little on that point. During the lockdowns, 100,000 restaurants went bankrupt due to our policies. Can you imagine if we gave them the $15 billion instead of Ukraine, one of many hundreds of nations we are doling out money to? We would have given each of those restaurants $150,000 to get them back on their feet. Don't you think that's the right thing to do for the citizens of your own country? I do. If you disagree with that, I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss. I think that a country who we have elected officials to represent us should represent us and take care of us first before we go trouncing around all over the world, being the police of the world. Can you imagine if the Soviet Union or Russia had 170 bases along the Canadian border and the Mexican border and maybe in Cuba? How would we feel about that? I can tell you how we'd feel, because at one time, Operation Northwoods in the 50s, I believe, or was that the 60s? The 60s, Operation Northwoods. The CIA, and this is public record, this is not conspiracy, had planned to bomb our country bombing our own citizens and blaming it on Cuba to raise sentiment against communism. All right, and that was the strategy at that point. Now, Operation Northwoods was never carried out, thankfully, but it goes to show how offended we are at just having one small, insignificant country near our border, not even on our border, near our border. So you can understand then the perspective that other countries, specifically in this case, Russia, might have. But I digress, and I am not a Putin sympathizer, by the way. I hate war in every shape and form. I do not agree with what Putin did to aggressively invade Ukraine. But there are significant perspectives that we must be careful that we consider there as well, and also looking at U.S. foreign policy in this whole thing. Anyways, I say all that because it is rather obvious that Putin knows what the U.S. is up to and has already planned for that, has already planned for sanctions. I'm quite sure that Russia will be quite okay with these sanctions. They have all the major resources. They have more than this. This is just the top 20. I think they can take care of themselves. So who will the sanctions really hurt? That's a good question. 3 headlines that I read today. All right. Number 1, Saudi Arabia rejects Biden's request for talks on increasing oil production and instead announces that they are considering accepting the yuan, Chinese yen, I guess is the way it's pronounced, instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. All right, and that was from the Wall Street Journal. India moves to explore alternative payment channels with Russia to avoid sanctions. All right, so maybe Russia is not going to be sanctioned as much as what the U.S. wants Russia to be sanctioned by other nations. And with the inflation numbers at 8% and climbing, and again, I think it's more like 14 or 15%, you have countries like India and Saudi Arabia becoming more and more inclined to invest in assets that show a return, or at least hold their value. The dollar is not doing that. This means that unless you raise the rates to a level that offsets inflation, many investors will move elsewhere, and you won't be able to take on new debt. All right, so centralized banks are concerned about this. Once they start raising rates, government budgets will quickly hit a wall, and interest payments on existing debt will become unmanageable. These headlines are highly significant and suggest what impact or what the ramifications of these sanctions actually will have. Doesn't seem like it's going to affect Russia as much as it might affect Europe and the US. Am I right? This is what it's looking like so far. And so if all of this is true and the US doesn't remain the dominant currency for trading oil and etc., let's say countries start moving over to alternative payment systems or possibly the Chinese yen, that spells big trouble for the US. Big trouble. All right, and big trouble for the dollar. So the dollar will continue at that point to fall. And pair that with the inflation that we are currently suffering, and you're looking at a significant inflationary recession / depression. And I'm not trying to be a doomsayer. I just want to look at this from an overarching view to see how it might play out in a couple years so that we can prepare to make our moves in the markets, specifically the US stock markets and crypto. All right. That being said, here we are, and we have the dollar under a level of resistance. Now, this is a long view, and I'm shifting from a long view to a shorter view. But overall, I will say that I see if these headlines that are being rumored play out and actually do become true, and let's say Russia is able to perfectly take care of themselves even through all of these sanctions, and let's say they partner with China, and let's say the Chinese yen becomes the petrodollar, and let's say India finds alternative ways to do business with Russia, who's actually being sanctioned here? Is it Russia then? Or is it the US and Europe? Answer: the US and Europe. All right. So we have to prepare ourselves for this possibility. And we can do this by looking at other perspectives. We may no longer be the dominating force that our politicians seem to want to impress upon us that we are throughout the world. And this move may greatly backfire on us. All right, enough of that. I have 5 minutes to go over these charts. The dollar is under a level of resistance. It has gone up a little bit today, but overall is down. And we can see that the VIX as well is down immensely. That is a good sign. This would be our priority indicator to let us know what will happen in the markets today and how these markets will close out. It is 3:20 Eastern Standard Time, so we have another hour here before the markets close out. Let's take a look, and we do see that over the last 4 days, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is way up. Not only have we conquered the 34,000 level of resistance, we've conquered this ascending purple trend line, and we are above the 50-day moving average. Likewise, the SPY is above the 50-day. Right now, I'm not saying it won't sell off before close, but that is a good sign. And NASDAQ and QQQ. All right, everybody is liking the fact that the Fed only raised interest rates 25 basis points, and that is where we're seeing all of these green candles come from. So we should see a little bit of that spill over into our crypto markets, right? Currently, total market cap is inside of this triangle, and I do expect, we are on the top side of the 50, that's a good sign. I do expect that we will break to the top side of this triangle, possibly over the weekend, but into next week. Ethereum looking very strong, a huge surge as it has conquered the 50-day as well as a level above it at 28.95, basically 2900, and that is a strong level of support if we can close above that today. Bitcoin dominance doing exactly what I expected it to do. In fact, you can see a little bit of a bull flag here. All right, so I was saying we're in this range through mid-March, and I do expect us to come up and hit our heads on this level of resistance, and it's looking that is a very real possibility still, and that it will play out exactly the way I expected it to when I arranged this triangle quite a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. All right, so we can take that data and factor in what's happening here in Bitcoin. You can see since the last time I was with you, I drew 2 more trend lines. This downtrending purple line, which we got over and conquered, and then a longer descending purple trend line, which we're working on right now as I speak. Now, if we can close above that, we can potentially make it up to our big resistance at 44,900-ish. If we can conquer that, good sign, people. That is a very good sign. We're in this area here, which makes me much more bullish, of course. I would like to see us conquer the blue and the green ascending trend line and get into this area. This is where I really become bullish. And above this blue ascending line, uber bullish area right here, I do expect we'll get there with a weakening dollar and everything that is going on. Again, let's play this story. Maybe it's not conclusion time yet. Overall, I think in the crypto space, things are looking very good. We're seeing lots of altcoin pop, and we're seeing Bitcoin be the leader that it is in the crypto space. So hold on to your hats, guys. I think it's going to be a wild ride here over the weekend and into next week. And overall, I'm still bullish. We've remained above our support all this time. Hit it 6, 7 times. I don't know how many times. This has left me long in the market, and I still am positioned long and am hoping for good things to occur. Okay, we have 1 minute. Let's jump to our conclusion here. Overall, sanctions on Russia could easily backfire on the U.S., as I've said. Now, that's the U.S. economy as a whole, but the U.S. dollar will continue to falter. This is called inflation. This will play into the markets, the stock markets and crypto. So should this occur, crypto would continue to rise at a rapid pace, along with gold and silver, which I failed to talk about. But if not, BTC, Bitcoin, is still a safe investment. Either way you're looking at it, guys, crypto, especially the larger cap coins like Bitcoin, is a safe place to invest. All right, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, y'all, and peace.